Dead America, Tales from Las Vegas, The Escalation, by Derek Slayton. Chapter 1. The darkness before dawn hung over Lake Las Vegas like a shroud as Sammy staggered out of his bedroom. The silk robe he wore flowed behind him as he walked, the expensive fabric catching what little light filtered through the hallway windows. His feet were bare against the cold marble floors, each step echoing through the empty mansion. Despite getting a few hours of blacked-out drunk sleep, the anger from the previous day still burned in his chest. It was a fire that no amount of alcohol could douse, no matter how hard he tried. He muttered curses under his breath, each word a venom-filled accusation against those who dared to cross him. His hand pressed against his forehead, rubbing at the throbbing pain that pulsed behind his eyes. The headache was brutal, a vice grip that squeezed tighter with each step. Days of non-stop drinking had finally caught up to him, the hangover settling in like a fog he couldn't shake. His mouth was dry, tasting of stale liquor and cigarettes. His stomach churned, threatening to rebel at any moment. "I need some coffee," Sammy said. He forced himself to continue walking, each step slow and deliberate down the opulent hallway. The walls were lined with expensive artwork, pieces he'd claimed from various mansions in the community. Everything in this house screamed wealth, from the marble floors to the crystal chandeliers. It was a kingdom built on fear and violence, and he sat at its center. Eventually, he stepped into the kitchen, his hand fumbling along the wall until he found the switch. He flipped on the lights, and the sudden brightness caused him to wince. The pain shot through his skull, like someone had driven a spike between his eyes. White spots danced in his vision, and he had to grip the counter to steady himself. He turned away from the overhead lights, his gaze drifting to the darkened living room just off to the side. His eyes slowly adjusted, the throbbing in his head settling into a dull roar rather than the sharp stabs of before. A dancer lay passed out on the couch, a blanket pulled up to her shoulders. She looked peaceful, comfortable even, her chest rising and falling with deep, steady breaths. That sight alone was enough to ignite something in Sammy. How dare she rest so easily in his house, under his roof, while he suffered? How dare she find comfort when he felt like death warmed over? The rage bubbled up from somewhere deep inside him, hot and irrational. His hand shot out, grabbing a glass that sat on the counter. Without a second thought, he flung it in her direction. The glass tumbled through the air before slamming onto the floor just beside the couch. It shattered on impact, shards of crystal scattering across the expensive tile. "Get your worthless ass up and make me some coffee," Sammy yelled. The young woman sat straight up, her eyes wide with panic. The blanket fell away as she tried to orient herself, to understand where the noise had come from. Her hair was a mess, and her makeup from the night before was smeared across her face. It took her a moment to process what was happening, to see Sammy standing in the kitchen with murder in his eyes. "I said get over here and start making coffee," Sammy said. He grabbed another glass from the counter, holding it up so she could see it. The threat was clear, and she understood it. She nearly fell off the couch as she scrambled to her feet, rushing into the kitchen. Her bare feet crunched on broken glass as she crossed into the living room, but she didn't dare stop or cry out. "Yeah, that's more like it. You and your worthless friends should be thanking me for saving you. Instead, all you do is drink my liquor and sleep like you own the place," Sammy said. The dancer kept her eyes down, focusing on the coffee maker as she worked. Her hands shook as she measured out the grounds, spilling some on the counter. She didn't dare look at Sammy, didn't dare speak. The man was a powder keg, and any wrong move could set him off. Sammy stepped over to the radio sitting on the counter, his fingers finding the dial. He flicked it on, and a moment later, Midnight Mike's voice filled the kitchen. The sound was crisp and clear, the signal strong despite everything that had happened to the world. "Good morning, Las Vegas. How's everybody doing out there? Yours truly is doing just fine. Actually got a few hours of sleep last night, which is a nice change of pace. Now, I know a lot of you are anxious for the breakfast rock out, and it's going to be coming up in just a few minutes. But first, I have some exciting news to share," Mike said. Mike paused, and a sound effect of a drum roll played through the speaker. The audio bit was cheesy, the kind of thing that might have been funny before the world fell apart. Now, it just felt absurd, like someone playing at being a DJ while the city burned around him. Sammy rolled his eyes, his jaw clenching. His headache pulsed in time with the drum roll. That's right, folks. We have 2 new strongholds that are now open to the public. One is in the north at a supercenter, and the other is in the south at a storage unit facility. Now, I'm not at liberty to broadcast their specific locations at the moment, but rest assured that if you're nearby, you'll be getting a call from me in the near future. And remember, if you haven't been able to get through to me, please keep calling and leaving messages. I promise I am listening to them and getting you on the rescue list, Mike said. Sammy grumbled to himself, the words coming out as a low growl. New strongholds meant more people organizing, more people finding ways to survive without him, more competition for resources, for power, for control. It grated on him in ways he couldn't fully articulate. He watched the coffee finally beginning to brew, his bloodshot eyes fixed on the machine. The dark liquid dripped into the pot, each drop feeling like it took an eternity. The smell of fresh coffee filled the kitchen, rich and bitter. It was one of the few comforts left in this world. He marched over to the machine, and the young dancer backed up as he approached. Her eyes were wide, her body pressed against the counter like she was trying to disappear into it. Sammy didn't speak as he grabbed a cup off the counter. He removed the pot mid-brew, shoving his cup underneath the drip. Coffee splashed onto the burner, hissing as it hit the hot surface. He watched the cup fill, his eyes never leaving it as Mike's voice continued through the speaker. As for right now, though, it's time to kick this morning off right with a bit of rock and roll. I'll be back after some breakfast, but in the meantime, crank it to 11 and get your day started right, Mike said. A moment later, a loud guitar lick came through the speaker. The sudden blast of noise cut through the kitchen, and Sammy jerked his hand. Coffee sloshed in the cup, nearly spilling over the rim. "Turn that damn thing off," Sammy yelled. He stared at the dancer, his eyes burning into her. She rushed over to the radio, her fingers fumbling with the dial until the music stopped. The silence that followed was heavy, oppressive. She glanced back at Sammy, who stood there savoring his coffee. He took a long sip, his eyes closing for a moment as the bitter liquid hit his tongue. When he opened them again, she was already slinking away, disappearing back into the living room. "Those bastards taking my stuff, stealing from me with impunity and killing my people. They think they can get away with this. Well, they're about to learn a hard lesson," Sammy said. He looked around the kitchen, his eyes scanning the counters. It took him several seconds before he spotted what he was searching for. He marched over to a charger sitting on the far counter, a walkie-talkie resting on the base. The device looked small in his hand as he grabbed it, his thumb pressing down on the button. "Miles, Landry, are you two on this thing?" Sammy asked. The radio crackled for a moment before Miles's voice came through. He sounded alert, wide awake, as if he'd been sitting beside the radio all night just waiting for this call. "I'm here, sir. What can I do for you?" Miles asked. "You can go bang on Landry's door and wake his ass up," Sammy said. There was a pause, and then Landry's voice came through the speaker. It was groggy, rough with sleep, but he was there. The man had clearly been sleeping, but with everything that happened the previous day, he'd kept the radio on beside his bed. "I'm here, Sammy," Landry said. Sammy's lips curled into something that might have been a smile. His tone shifted, becoming almost mocking. "Well, good morning. I hope I didn't interrupt your beauty sleep," Sammy said. There was no response from Landry. The man knew better than to engage, knew that any words could be used against him. The silence stretched on, but Sammy didn't press it. He had other fish to fry. "Miles, do you remember what we discussed yesterday?" Sammy asked. "Yes, sir, I do," Miles said. "Good, because I just heard on the radio that those people are celebrating the fact that they're stealing from me. So it's time to teach these thieves and murderers a lesson, don't you?" Sammy asked. The tone in Miles's voice shifted, becoming upbeat. There was an edge to it, something almost giddy. "Yes, sir, Sammy, we're going to teach them a lesson," Miles said. "Good boy. Now you know what to do, so I expect you to do it," Sammy said. "Those people are going to have a day they'll never forget," Miles said. Landry's voice cut through the radio, confusion evident in his tone. "Maybe I'm just tired, but I feel like I've missed something here," Landry said. "Oh, you haven't missed anything, Landry. I think it's time to give Miles a shot at doing your job. So when you and Ace join him outside the walls today, you're going to be taking orders from him," Sammy said. The radio went silent. The implications of what Sammy had just said hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Seconds ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity. Sammy took another sip of his coffee, savoring the power he held over these men. After what felt like forever, he spoke again. "I'm hoping there's a bad connection, Landry, because I didn't hear you say yes, sir," Sammy said. Landry's voice came through, controlled but strained. "Yes, sir, Sammy. Ace and I will follow Miles's orders," Landry said. "That's what I wanted to hear. Now get your asses in gear. I want results, and I want them today," Sammy said. "I'll be back with good news before you know it, sir," Miles said. "You better, unless you want Skylar taking your job. Now go get it done," Sammy said. He clicked off the radio, tossing it onto the counter with a clatter. The device skidded across the granite surface, coming to rest near the edge. He took a large sip of his coffee, the liquid burning as it went down. The heat spread through his chest, warming him from the inside. He stood motionless for a moment, his eyes staring at nothing in particular. The caffeine was starting to do its job, cutting through the fog of his hangover. The world came into sharper focus. The edges no longer quite so blurry. His mind was already turning, focused on his perceived enemies outside the confines of Lake Las Vegas. Connor and his people had made a mistake yesterday, a fatal one. They'd crossed a line, stolen from him, killed one of his men. That kind of disrespect couldn't stand. If he let it slide, others would think they could do the same. The carefully constructed kingdom he'd built would crumble, and he'd be left with nothing. No, they needed to learn. They needed to understand that there were consequences for crossing Sammy, blood for blood, pain for pain. Miles would see to that, and if Landry and Ace got in the way, well, they'd learn their lesson too. Everyone had a role to play in this new world, and those who forgot their place needed to be reminded. "I hope you enjoyed your ill-gotten gains last night, because the bill is about to come due." Chapter 2. Ace and Landry sat around their kitchen table, both of them dressed for combat and armed for the day. Combat boots laced tight, tactical vests buckled and adjusted, sidearms holstered at their hips. Rifles leaned against the wall within arm's reach. Neither of them spoke for the longest time as they stared at their full coffee cups in front of them. The silence stretched on, heavy and uncomfortable. Ace let out a deep sigh as he reached down and grabbed the mug. He took a long drink, the coffee still hot enough to burn his tongue. He set it back on the table with a dull thunk, releasing a second sigh as he did. His shoulders slumped forward, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "Yeah, tell me about it," Landry said. "So Miles is in charge of some major operation that we aren't looped in on. This is not good," Ace said. "That's an understatement, Ace," Landry said. Ace shifted in his seat, his fingers drumming against the side of his mug. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. "You don't think Miles would, Ace said. He trailed off, not wanting to say what he was thinking. The words hung in the air between them, unspoken but understood. Landry picked up on it, his expression grim. "Do I think Miles would pop us in the back of the head and throw our bodies in the nearest dumpster? Probably not," Landry said. Ace looked at him, a little confused. His brow furrowed as he processed the answer. "What makes you so confident of that?" Ace asked. "Have you seen Miles? He gets winded walking to the docks. Do you really think he has the ability to lift our bodies into the dumpster?" Landry asked. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Ace cracked a smile. The mental image was enough to break through the tension. Both men let out a laugh, the sound genuine even if the humor was dark. "Even though he's an out-of-shape fat ass, I'm pretty sure he can pull the trigger," Ace said. "Just keep your head on a swivel while we're out there," Landry said. Before Ace could respond, the radio crackled to life. Static burst through the speaker before Miles's voice came through, cocky and agitated all at once. "Landry, get your asses down to the docks. We're ready to cast off," Miles said. "Took him long enough. It's been an hour since Sammy told him to get moving," Ace said. Landry grabbed the radio, his thumb finding the button. He clicked it on, keeping his voice neutral. "Sit tight, we're on the way," Landry said. He turned down the volume before Miles could respond, making it all but impossible for them to hear whatever came back through the speaker. Both men knew it was probably another barked order or complaint. They didn't need to hear it. They downed the rest of their coffees, the liquid now lukewarm, but still caffeinated. The mugs hit the table with matching thuds as they stood, grabbing their rifles and heading for the front door. Landry pulled it open and stepped outside, Ace right behind him. They stopped dead in their tracks. Skylar sat behind the driver's seat of a golf cart parked in their driveway, staring at them. Her arms were crossed, and there was a hint of amusement in her eyes. "Miles thought you might dilly-dally, so he sent me to pick you up," Skylar said. Ace and Landry shared a concerned glance. The fact that Miles had anticipated their hesitation wasn't a good sign. It meant he was thinking ahead, planning for resistance. Landry locked the door behind them before they climbed into the back of the golf cart. Their rifles rested across their laps as Skylar put the cart in motion. They rode in silence, the electric motor whining as it carried them through the neighborhood. The streets were empty, the houses quiet. A few curtains twitched as they passed, residents watching from behind the safety of their windows. The morning sun was climbing higher, casting long shadows across the pavement. They drove over to the docks, where Miles stood with his arms crossed and a satisfied grin on his face. He looked like a cat that had just caught a mouse. The expression made Landry's stomach turn. "We're behind schedule. Get in the boat," Miles said. Ace and Landry did as instructed, stepping into the front of the boat. The vessel rocked slightly under their weight as they found their footing. Miles and Skylar got in behind them, Miles taking position at the outboard motor. He pulled the starter cord, and the engine roared to life. The ride across the lake was silent except for the whine of the motor. Water sprayed up from the bow as they cut through the calm surface. Landry glanced back at Miles, who continued to have a smug look on his face as he guided them over the water. The man looked like he was enjoying himself, like this was all some kind of game. His hand rested casually on the tiller, adjusting their course with small movements. Before too long, they reached the docks on the other side. The boat bumped against the wooden planks as Miles cut the engine. The four of them got out, their boots thudding against the dock as they marched toward an awaiting SUV. As they came around the wooden barrier separating the parking lot from the docks, Landry and Ace noticed something wrong. The parking lot was empty except for their vehicle. Every truck and SUV that was usually there was gone. The spaces sat vacant, oil stains marking where the vehicles had been parked. "Landry," Ace said. "I know," Landry said. Both men knew how unusual it was for every vehicle to be gone. The trucks and SUVs had been collected over the last few weeks of the apocalypse, scavenged from dealerships and abandoned driveways. They were used on excursions for supplies, for patrols along the wall, for runs into the city. It was never more than a few of them going out at any given time, maybe 3 or 4 vehicles maximum. For all of them to be out, something was up, something big. "Don't worry, you'll see what we're doing soon enough. Just get in the back and keep your mouth shut. I've heard enough of your bullshit to last me a lifetime," Miles said. The duo did as instructed, getting into the back of the SUV as Miles slid behind the wheel. Skylar got into the shotgun position, turning to look back at them with a smirk. The smugness resonated between the two of them, a shared satisfaction that made Landry's skin crawl. The drive was a relatively short one, maybe 10 minutes. Miles pulled out of the parking lot and onto the main road, heading north. Normally, a trip like this would require some detours and backtracking, navigating around abandoned cars and areas thick with the dead. However, Miles drove his route at a constant speed, never slowing or swerving. Bodies lined the road, dispatched zombies scattered along the shoulders. The path had been cleared for them, meticulously prepared. Miles slowed down as he approached the next intersection. Both Ace and Landry leaned forward, trying to figure out where they were. The buildings around them were a mix of residential and commercial, nothing that stood out as a landmark. Before they could orient themselves, the radio at the front crackled to life. A man's voice they couldn't place came through the speaker. "Miles, we're in position," the man said. Miles grabbed the radio and clicked it on to respond. His voice was calm, professional even. "Is anybody aware of your presence?" Miles asked. "If they are, they aren't showing it," the man said. "Excellent. Stand by," Miles said. Miles clicked off the radio, turning around to face the duo in the back seat. His grin widened, and there was something cruel in his eyes. He savored the moment, drawing it out. "I had a nice chat with Sammy yesterday, telling him just how badly you failed when we came across the thieves yesterday. He told me that he wanted me to show you how it was done, so I hope that you enjoy the first of many demonstrations today," Miles said. He hit the button on the radio, his finger pressing down hard. A sinister grin crept across his face as he spoke. "Light it up," Miles said. A split second later, Gunfire erupted from several different directions ahead. The sound was deafening, overlapping cracks and pops that echoed off the buildings. Miles hit the gas, speeding up to the next intersection. The SUV lurched forward, giving everybody inside a clear view of what was happening. A block down sat a restaurant that had a makeshift barricade made of cars surrounding it. Sedans and trucks had been pushed together, creating a wall of metal and glass. Bullets flew through the air, breaking out the windows of the vehicles. Glass exploded outward in glittering showers. More rounds slammed into the restaurant itself, punching holes in the brick facade. From their vantage point, they could see people trying to run back into the building. Figures moved in panicked sprints, silhouettes against the building. A couple of them were cut down as they moved, bodies jerking and falling. 2 people made it inside, disappearing through the doorway. A moment later, return fire came from the windows. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkened interior. The firefight continued for a couple of minutes, the people inside the restaurant doing their best to defend their position. But it was clear that they were outgunned. Sammy's forces had them surrounded, firing from multiple angles. The defenders couldn't cover all the approaches at once. As the gunfire coming from inside the stronghold faded, the radio crackled to life. "We're ready for Phase 2, the man said. "Have at it," Miles said. Landry and Ace were frozen in their seats, staring at the restaurant. Their hands gripped their rifles, knuckles white. They wondered what was about to happen, what Phase 2 meant. They didn't have to wait long. A massive explosion hit the front of the building. The blast was enormous, a fireball that consumed the entrance. The windows of the SUV rattled from the shockwave, the vehicle rocking on its suspension. Fire and black smoke rose into the air, climbing toward the sky in a roiling column. Debris rained down, chunks of brick and twisted metal clattering onto the pavement. "Jesus Christ," Ace said. Miles clicked on the radio, his voice calm despite the destruction in front of them. "Move in and finish the job," Miles said. "Copy that, sir," the man said. Landry and Ace looked on helplessly as a swarm of armed guards moved toward the badly damaged restaurant. At least a dozen of them advanced from different directions, rifles raised. They moved with purpose, professional and coordinated. They reached the front of the building, firing through the shattered windows at stragglers. Screams cut through the air, then stopped abruptly. "Miles, can you cover the rear?" the man asked. "We're on the move," Miles said. Miles hit the gas, the SUV lurching forward. He sped up to the next block before turning toward the restaurant. As they got close, movement caught their attention. 3 people were running out the back, stumbling and struggling to keep their feet. A young couple, maybe in their 20s, and a middle-aged man holding a hunting rifle. All 3 were covered in dust and blood. The couple turned and ran away, moving as fast as they could down the street. The man noticed the SUV half a block down. He pulled the rifle up, bringing it to his shoulder. He squeezed off a round that cracked through the air. The bullet hit the side mirror on the driver's side door, shattering it and sending pieces flying. "Skylar, do your thing," Miles said. Skylar didn't hesitate. She threw open the door and stepped out in one fluid motion. In a flash, she had her rifle at the ready, the stock pressed against her shoulder. She took aim and squeezed off a single round. The report echoed between the buildings. The bullet found its mark, hitting the man in the shoulder. He spun from the impact, his rifle flying from his hands as he hit the ground. Skylar jumped back in as Miles hit the gas. The SUV roared forward, speeding toward the man as he struggled on the pavement. He reached out for his weapon, his fingers stretching. He barely got his fingertips on the stock before the SUV rolled over him. The vehicle bounced violently, the suspension compressing, then rebounding. A sickening crunch came from beneath the tires. Miles slammed on the brakes, the SUV skidding to a stop. He looked out the windshield just as the couple vanished around the corner. He turned and barked out orders to Landry and Ace, pointing in the direction the couple had gone. "Chase them down, and maybe you'll get back on my good side," Miles said. Ace and Landry didn't hesitate. They threw open the doors and jumped out, their boots hitting the pavement hard. They ran in pursuit, rifles in hand. Behind them, Skylar spoke up, her voice curious. "Why did you do that?" Skylar asked. "Because I don't feel like chasing them down. Do you?" Miles asked. Skylar thought for a moment, shrugging and shaking her head. The logic made sense to her. "I didn't think so. Besides, we'll give them 10 minutes. If they're not back by then, they can walk back. Chapter 3. Landry and Ace ran down the back parking lot of the restaurant as more gunshots popped off inside. The sounds echoed off the surrounding buildings, each crack making them wince. They knew a massacre was taking place, but there wasn't anything they could do about it. They tried their best to put it out of their minds as they ran, focusing on the task at hand. However, each shot that rang out was a reminder of what was happening behind them. They ran halfway up the next block, which turned into a residential area. Houses lined the road to the left, their front yards quiet and still. They stopped in between the row, looking down in the direction the couple had run. The street stretched out before them, empty except for a few abandoned cars and scattered debris. Both men raised their weapons, hoping they didn't need to use them. However, they knew they might. Their fingers rested along the trigger guards, ready but not committed. "What are we doing, Landry?" Ace asked. "We need to find them," Landry said. "And then what?" Ace asked. "We'll leave that up to them," Landry said. Landry glanced over, giving his partner a nod before they began moving down through the yards. Their boots crushed overgrown grass as they advanced, moving low and fast. Ace covered the houses on the left, while Landry covered the right. They kept their eyes on the windows and patio doors, making sure nobody was aiming up a shot on them. Most of the houses looked abandoned, curtains drawn, or windows broken. As they got to the next block, they stopped, looking around for any signs of life. "Maybe they had a car waiting," Ace asked. Before Landry could respond, a woman's scream pierced through the air. The sound was sharp and terrified, cutting through the quiet neighborhood. The duo looked around, trying to get a read on it. They turned their heads, listening for the direction. A second scream helped them hone in on the source, coming from the front side of a house a couple doors down. "This way," Landry said. Landry raised his rifle, Ace falling into line right behind him as they ran through the yard. They moved up alongside the house, their boots pounding against the ground. They stopped at the corner, pressing themselves against the wall. Landry looked out toward the front door, where he could hear muffled screams intermingling with moaning. The sounds were distinct, human terror mixing with the guttural groans of the dead. He spotted half a dozen zombies right by the door, trying to force their way in. Two of the creatures were wedged in between the door and the frame, preventing it from closing. Their bodies blocked the entrance, arms reaching through the gap. Another dozen creatures shambled toward the house from the street, about 20 yards from the others currently trying to break in. Their movements were slow but relentless. "Take them out quietly," Landry said. Ace didn't question the order, trusting his friend as they slung their rifles over their shoulders. They drew their knives in unison, the blades catching the sunlight. They rushed forward, moving fast and low. Landry ran toward the back of the pack, his eyes locked on the two at the rear. He stopped just short of them, planting his foot and delivering a forceful kick to the side of one. The impact was hard enough to send one ghoul into the other, knocking them both to the ground. They hit the pavement with dull thuds, arms and legs tangling together. The other four still standing paid him no attention, their focus entirely on the door and the prey inside. The distraction gave Ace an opening. He drove the tip of his knife into the temple of the first zombie he came across, the blade punching through bone. He shoved it to the side as he yanked it free, blood and dark fluid coating the steel. Landry grabbed the next one as it turned toward Ace, pushing it up against the other two by the door. The creature let out a frustrated moan as it tried to spin around and grab onto the fresh prey that was so close. Its fingers clawed at the air, reaching but not finding purchase. It never got the chance as Landry's knife cracked through its skull, driving in just behind the ear. Landry strained to hold it up, using it as a defensive measure. The other zombies grabbed onto it rather than him, their hands clutching at the corpse, the dead pulling at the dead. Ace swung his blade around the side of the body Landry held, reaching the creature just behind it. The knife pierced the eye socket, sliding in deep. The zombie went limp. Landry quickly dispatched the other one, his blade finding the soft spot at the base of the skull. He let go of the one in his hands, and bodies hit the sidewalk by the front door with wet slaps. As they fell, they spotted a young man in a school letterman's jacket standing in the partially open doorway. He was brandishing a knife, his hand shaking, but his jaw set. "Stay back, or I'll make you pay," Oliver said. The kid was terrified, his voice cracking on the last word. The sight prompted an almost amused look on the faces of Ace and Landry. Both of them lightly tapped their rifles, the gesture making their point without having to say a word. The difference in firepower was clear. "If you want to live, let us in right now," Landry said. Oliver glanced over to someone behind the door, almost like he was asking for permission. A moment later, he lowered the blade and stepped back, opening the door wider. Ace and Landry quickly moved inside, their boots tracking blood across the threshold. They turned and kicked the corpses away from the front door, creating enough space so they could secure the entrance. The deadbolt clicked into place. The two of them stood in the front room, looking at the scared young couple. Blood covered their clothes, splattered across their shirts and jeans. The girl had it on her face, smeared across her cheek. "Just please make it quick. I don't want to suffer," Sophia said. "Relax, we're not going to kill you," Ace said. You aren't?" Sophia asked. "My name is Landry, and this is my friend Ace," Landry said. Ace gave a friendly wave as Oliver spoke up. "I'm Oliver, this is Sophia," Oliver said. "Okay, Oliver, we don't have a lot of time. I need to know what other strongholds are close to here," Landry said. "Why? So you can go kill everybody there too?" Sophia asked. "No, so we can try and save the people there," Landry said. "Forgive me if I don't buy that," Oliver said. "Do you know Connor?" Landry asked. Oliver and Sophia exchanged a curious glance, not sure what to make of it. The question caught them off guard. "I'll take that as a yes. I'm the reason Connor is out here, and not laying dead at the bottom of Lake Las Vegas. The people who just killed your friends are hell-bent on doing it to everybody else working with Connor," Landry said. "And we're not exactly on board with that plan," Ace said. Oliver hesitated, his mouth opening then closing. The conflict played across his face. Sophia took the opportunity to speak up. "There's a small grocery store a few miles east of here, near the hardware store," Sophia said. "Sophia," Oliver said. "They know who Connor is, so maybe they're telling the truth," Sophia said. "And if they're not?" Oliver asked. "Then we'll be dead once I'm done talking, so it won't be our problem anymore. But if I'm right," Sophia said. She trailed off, the implication hanging in the air. Oliver looked at her for a long moment before reluctantly nodding in agreement. He turned back to Landry and Ace. "The biggest one, though, is the supercenter over off Maple," Oliver said. Landry thought about it for a few moments, his mind working through the possibilities. He was putting together a plan, calculating distances and timing. Before he could vocalize it, his radio crackled to life. Miles's voice came through, sharp and annoyed. "Okay, Landry, where the hell are you guys at?" Miles asked. "Do you have a way to get in touch with Connor?" Landry asked. Sophia nodded, pulling out her cell phone. The screen was cracked but still functional. "Good. As soon as we're gone, I want you to call him and tell him to evacuate the grocery store and to get the supercenter ready for battle. Make sure you tell him that Landry told you," Landry said. The young couple looked confused, trying to process what he was saying. They flinched as zombie hands began smacking at the front door, the wood rattling in the frame. The dead they'd killed outside had drawn more attention. The radio crackled back to life, Miles's patience wearing thin. "If you don't answer me right this instant, you're walking back home," Miles said. Landry pulled out the radio, clicking it on and speaking curtly. "We're in a house a couple blocks west of the restaurant. There's 20 of those things out front, you can't miss it," Landry said. "Hope you have a way out, because I'm not wasting the ammo," Miles said. "Just wait at the intersection. We'll be right there," Landry said. Landry pointed to Ace, barking out orders. "Make sure the back is clear," Landry said. As Ace ran off toward the rear of the house, Landry pointed to the couple. "Grab food and water and get into the back bedroom," Landry said. "But why?" Oliver asked. "Because the only way the asshole on the radio isn't going to come in here to make sure you're dead is if those things are swarming the house. So I'm going to have to let them in," Landry said. Oliver and Sophia nodded, understanding dawning on their faces. They ran to the kitchen, grabbing what they could from the cabinets. Landry moved over to the front door, positioning himself. He looked out through the window, spotting Miles and Skylar pulling up about 40 yards away. The SUV idled in the middle of the street. Landry aimed his rifle at the outer wall, popping off a few shots. The rounds punched through the drywall, kicking up dust. The noise caused the couple to flinch as they ran down the hallway, arms loaded with supplies. "Sorry, it was necessary," Landry said. Oliver nodded as they reached the back bedroom. Landry listened for the door to be slammed shut. The sound came a moment later, followed by the scrape of furniture being pushed against it. "We're good out back here," Ace said. "Here we go," Landry said. Landry flicked the deadbolt open before turning the knob. He retreated quickly as zombies began pouring through the door, their bodies stumbling over the threshold. Hands reached for him, mouths open and moaning. He rushed to the rear of the house, Ace already at the sliding glass door. They exited through it before pulling it shut behind them. The glass rattled, but held. The duo ran hard through the backyards of the house, vaulting over a low fence. They cut between two more houses before turning toward the road, meeting up with Miles and Skylar. They jumped into the back of the SUV, breathing hard. "We're in! Let's go!" Ace said. Miles hit the gas, driving a couple blocks away before slamming on the brakes. The SUV screeched to a halt. He turned and stared them down, his eyes suspicious. "So, what took you so long?" Miles asked. "I wanted to make sure they told me everything," Landry said. Miles and Skylar gave him a curious look. Skylar turned in her seat, studying them. "And what exactly did they tell you?" Skylar asked. "There's a grocery store a few miles east of here, near the hardware store. That's their closest stronghold," Landry said. Miles looked at him skeptically, his eyes narrowing. "And how exactly did you get that information?" Miles asked. "I put 2 rounds into the boyfriend's chest, or did you not hear that?" Landry asked. Miles glanced to Skylar, who gave him a nod. She'd heard the shots, confirming the story. "And you didn't put the girl down?" Miles asked. "I opened the front door, figured our friends deserved to have a little fun too," Landry said. Miles wasn't fully convinced, but the story did line up with everything he had witnessed. The gunshots, the timing, the zombies swarming the house. He gave them a skeptical look. Finally, he nodded. "Well, let's go see if she was telling the truth about the grocery store," Miles said. Miles turned around, hitting the gas and speeding off. The SUV lurched forward, leaving the residential neighborhood behind. Landry and Ace shared a worried glance in the back seat, their eyes meeting for just a moment. They hoped that Sophia was able to make the call in time. Chapter 4. The drive toward the grocery store was quiet and tense inside the SUV. Miles gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white from the pressure. His jaw was set, his eyes fixed on the road ahead with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Skylar stared out the passenger window, her rifle resting across her lap. Her finger tapped against the stock in a nervous rhythm. Landry and Ace sat in the back seats, silently praying that the young couple was able to get a hold of Connor and that they had enough time to evacuate. Every second that passed felt like an eternity. The hum of the engine was the only sound, a constant drone that filled the silence. The silence was broken as the occupants lurched forward. Miles slammed on the brakes, the SUV's tires screeching against the pavement. "Damn it," Miles said. Landry leaned over, looking out the front windshield at a small army of zombies clogging up the street. There had to be at least 50 of them, maybe more, spread across both lanes. They shambled forward in a mass of rotting flesh and tattered clothing. He managed to stifle a smirk, the delay brought on by the horde a small blessing. Miles grabbed the radio from the dash, clicking it on. Frustration poured out of him as he practically yelled into it. "We got another horde. Reverse 2 blocks and we're going to come around the north," Miles said. "Copy that, sir," a man said. Miles did a 3-point turn, the SUV's engine revving as he reversed. The convoy followed, 3 other vehicles falling into line behind them. 2 SUVs and a pickup truck loaded down with armed guards from the Lake Las Vegas community. As they got a couple blocks back, Miles made the turn, honking the horn to get the others to follow. The sound echoed off the buildings. They drove down a few blocks before turning back in the original direction they were headed. Miles nodded as he saw that the route was clear, no zombies blocking their path. The silence returned to the vehicle as they drove the last mile. They encountered virtually no zombies on their route, the streets eerily empty. However, Landry kept his eyes to the side, spotting throngs of them scattered about the area. They wandered through parking lots and between buildings, drawn to some distant sound or movement. Miles got to the next intersection, stopping in the middle and looking to the left. The grocery store sat a block down. The building was modestly sized, maybe 10,000 square feet. Like the restaurant, the parking lot was encircled with cars acting as a makeshift barricade. Sedans and trucks had been pushed together, creating a wall around the perimeter. Unlike the restaurant, however, there were no guards. Only a handful of zombies shambled about, their movements slow and aimless. The sight only served to confuse Miles. His brow furrowed as he stared at the building. "Something's not right," Miles said. "What's wrong?" Skylar asked. "Where are the guards? Why aren't they taking down those things at the front?" Miles asked. Miles let his mind wander, working through the possibilities. Rage entered him as suspicion took hold. He turned toward the duo in the back, his eyes narrow and accusatory. "This is your doing, isn't it?" Miles asked. Ace leaned back in his seat, looking over to Landry. He let his partner handle the situation. "Did you ever stop to consider that someone in the restaurant called for help?" Landry asked. Miles thought about it for a moment, as if this was the first time he considered that possibility. Landry could see the wheels turning inside the campaign leader's head. There would have been plenty of time for someone to make a call. They wouldn't even have had to say anything, as the gunfire and explosion would have said everything that needed to be said, Landry said. "All right, you've made your point," Miles said. Miles muttered curses under his breath as he picked up the radio. He brought it to his mouth, barking into it. "I want one vehicle on me, the other two keep watch. I don't know what we're walking into, but I don't like it," Miles said. "Copy that, sir," the man said. Miles hit the gas, driving at a slow yet deliberate speed toward the grocery store. The SUV crept forward, tires crunching over debris scattered across the pavement. He paused at the final intersection, looking down the street. 100 zombies started 50 yards away, a mass of bodies filling the road. They shambled in the opposite direction, drawn to something out of sight. Rather than drive all the way up to the parking lot, he stopped with the SUV out of sight. He put it in park, his hand resting on the gear shift. "Everybody out," Miles said. Ace, Landry, and Skylar did as instructed, getting out and readying their weapons. Boots hit the pavement as they exited the vehicle. The other SUV pulled up alongside them, its engine idling. The driver rolled his window down before speaking. "Where do you want us?" the man asked. "I want you to hold the line here. We're going to go inspect the store. If you hear gunshots, start shooting anybody that isn't us," Miles said. The man nodded and rolled up his window. Miles motioned for the other three to gather around him, his hand gesturing them closer. "Landry, you're on point," Miles said. "I'm on point? I thought this was your operation," Landry asked. "It is, which is why I'm giving the orders. And I'm ordering you to take point. This feels like a trap, and one you may or may not be responsible for. So, if something is going to pop off, you're going to feel it first," Miles said. Landry put the thoughts about whether or not Miles was onto him aside. He got focused for the mission at hand. The reality was that he was responsible for what they were walking into, and he needed to be alert in case they had a welcome gift waiting. His grip tightened on his rifle. "Well, don't just stand there. Get your ass in gear," Miles said. Landry nodded, raising his weapon and moving them out from cover. Miles pointed to Ace, getting him next in line. He and Skylar brought up the rear. The foursome raced across the street, their boots pounding against the asphalt. They jumped and slid over the roof of a sedan, the metal warm under their hands. They took a knee on the other side, rifles aimed toward the store. "Ace, watch that emergency exit on the left side of the building. Miles, Skylar, cover the front door, and nobody fires unless I do," Landry said. Landry glanced at the other two, prompting them to nod in agreement. Their eyes were sharp, focused. "Good, let's move," Landry said. Landry led them out from cover, everybody focusing their guns on the front door. Ace kept his attention on the emergency exit, his rifle tracking the metal door. As they got within 10 yards, they could see inside through the glass storefront. The interior was dark, showing no signs of movement, no guards, no survivors, nothing. Landry gave out hand signals, getting Miles and Skylar to flank the door. They moved into position, backs pressed against the wall on either side of the entrance. He worked on getting the door open, his hand reaching for the handle. Much to his surprise, the door wasn't locked. It moved ever so slightly as he pushed the sliding glass to the side. "Breaching in 3, 2, 1, Landry said. Landry trailed off as he moved the door to the side. As soon as it moved 6 inches, an ear-piercingly loud sound went off. The alarm blared, coming from multiple speakers around the building. The noise was sharp and relentless, a shrieking wail that cut through the air. "Abort!" Landry said. Landry turned to run back to their SUV, his instincts screaming at him to retreat. However, Miles blocked his path, standing firm. His face was twisted with rage. "Get inside and kill anybody you see," Miles said. Miles shoved Landry back toward the door, forcing him through. Landry stumbled forward as they pushed inside. The alarm was even louder in the building, bouncing off the walls and ceiling. They quickly swept the front area, seeing that nobody was home. There were a lot of personal belongings scattered about, as if they had been abandoned in a hurry. Backpacks lay open, their contents spilling out. Food wrappers littered the floor. A child stuffed animal sat propped against a checkout counter. They ran down the front aisle, boots squeaking on the linoleum. They looked through the entirety of the store in a matter of seconds, clearing each row with military precision. Nobody was hiding in the back rooms. Nobody was crouched behind the deli counter. The place was empty, abandoned in what looked like a very organized evacuation. Miles marched over to the others, rage filling him. His face was red, veins standing out on his forehead. "Get back to the SUV, now," Miles said. The 4 of them ran back to the parking lot as the alarm continued to go off. The sound followed them, a constant shriek that would draw every zombie in the area. As they exited the building, gunshots popped off from the street. The sharp cracks echoed between the buildings. The guards that were backing them up had opened fire. They were shooting at the horde of ghouls that were marching toward the grocery store, drawn by the alarm. The mass of bodies had changed direction, now stumbling toward the source of the noise. This caused the foursome to pick up the pace, their legs pumping hard. They leaped over the barricade, hands grabbing the hoods of cars to vault over. They got back to their SUV, throwing open the doors. As soon as they were inside, Miles threw it into reverse. The engine roared as he backed up. Skylar picked up the radio, clicking it on. "We're safe. Get the hell out of there," Skylar said. The other SUV didn't waste time. It reversed course, tires spinning as it accelerated. The vehicle quickly put distance between itself and the horde. The zombies kept coming, drawn to the alarm like moths to a flame. The caravan retreated back a few blocks. Miles slammed on the brakes, the SUV jerking to a stop. He sat there for several seconds, taking deep breaths. His hands gripped the wheel so hard his knuckles went white. He was doing his best not to completely lose it. As he sat there, the radio crackled to life. "Sir, where are we going?" the man asked. Miles didn't respond for a moment. The silence stretched on, heavy and tense. Skylar hit the button on the radio. "Hold tight, we're figuring it out," Skylar said. Miles turned around to Landry, staring him down. His eyes burned with suspicion and barely contained rage. "Did that bitch tell you any place else before you fed her to those things?" Miles asked. Landry played dumb for a moment, his expression carefully neutral. He paused, then nodded. "Yeah, she said something about a supercenter. One near Maple, I think," Landry said. Miles glared at him, his eyes searching Landry's face for any sign of deception. He held the stare for a long moment before reaching over and grabbing the radio. His finger pressed down on the button hard. "We're headed north, to the supercenter on Maple. Make sure you're reloaded, because they might know we're coming." Chapter 5. It took nearly half an hour for the caravan to work its way over toward the supercenter. The road was thick with zombies in multiple places, forcing them to backtrack through residential streets. Some streets were completely impassable, clogged with the dead shuffling shoulder to shoulder. Each detour cost them time, precious minutes that could mean the difference between catching Connor's people off guard or walking into a prepared defense. Landry watched the clock on the dashboard. Each minute that ticked by, another chance for the warning to reach its destination. The convoy moved in a tight formation, never more than a car length apart. The lead SUV would stop at intersections, checking for threats before waving the others forward. It was slow, methodical work. As they got within a quarter mile of the building, they encountered another horde. The mass of bodies blocked the entire street, at least 100 of them packed together. They shambled forward in a wave of rotting flesh and reaching hands. "Jesus! As soon as we start shooting, those things are going to be coming our way," Skylar said. It won't matter. We'll go in, kick some ass, and leave the doors wide open for the survivors to deal with, Miles said. But Miles, we might need, Skylar said. Miles shot Skylar a glance, his eyes hard and cold. The look was enough to get her to stop talking. Her mouth snapped shut mid-sentence. The moment was uncomfortable, the tension in the vehicle thick enough to cut. She looked down at her lap, her voice coming out in an apologetic manner. "I'm sorry, Miles," Skylar said. Miles smirked, giving her a condescending pat on the shoulder. His hand lingered there for a moment before he hit the gas. He led the convoy down a few more blocks before turning left, stopping halfway up the block as the supercenter came into view. The massive building sat at the end of the parking lot, its blue and white facade unmistakable. Much like the other strongholds they had dealt with, a row of cars surrounded the parking lot. The vehicles had been pushed together to create a barrier, gaps between them filled with shopping carts and other debris. Unlike the grocery store, however, they could see movement inside the store. Figures moved past the windows, silhouettes against the fluorescent lights still burning inside. Miles grabbed the radio, clicking it on. He spoke in an excited manner, his voice rising with anticipation. "Okay, everybody, listen up. I have eyes on the prize, and it looks like they're at home. We're going to hit this hard and fast. I'm leading the charge, and I want everybody close behind," Miles said. "What about the barricade?" a man asked. "I'm going to plow right through it, clear us a path straight to the building. As soon as we're through, I want teams 1 and 2 at the door. Team 3, I want you securing the parking lot. Make sure they don't have anybody hiding in the cars," Miles said. There was a smattering of yes sirs coming through the radio. Miles tossed the device onto the dash with a clatter. He did a 3-point turn, getting the back end of the SUV lined up in the middle of the road. The vehicle rocked as he shifted into reverse. "You boys might want to buckle up, because this ride is about to get bumpy," Miles said. Everybody did as instructed. Even Skylar was buckling her seatbelt, realizing that Miles wasn't thinking straight and was about to do something dangerous and stupid. Landry and Ace exchanged a glance in the back seat before clicking their belts into place. Miles revved the engine a few times, the sound roaring through the quiet street. Then he slammed on the gas. Miles kept his attention focused on the video display on the dash. The back camera on the vehicle gave him a clean line of sight, showing the barricade approaching fast. The SUV picked up a ton of speed, the engine screaming as they accelerated. They approached 60 miles per hour as they got within striking distance of the barricade. Miles adjusted the steering just enough so that the rear bumper slammed into the touching bumpers of 2 cars. The impact was massive, metal crunching and glass shattering. The sound was deafening, a cacophony of destruction. The force was more than enough to push them out of the way, the vehicle spinning from the collision. One car rotated a full 90 degrees before slamming into another part of the barricade. Everybody inside the SUV jostled around violently as they lost most of their speed in a split second. Landry's head snapped forward, then back, his neck protesting the whiplash. Ace grunted as his shoulder slammed into the door, the impact hard enough to bruise. Despite the damage and the grinding of metal on metal, Miles managed to spin the SUV around. The steering wheel spun in his hands as he corrected their trajectory. They had just enough speed to propel them toward the front door. Smoke rose from the back end, black and acrid. Something underneath the vehicle scraped against the pavement, throwing sparks. The other 2 SUVs flanked them as they got close to the front entranceway. The people they had seen inside from a distance were now hiding within the store, nowhere to be seen through the windows. Miles slammed on the brakes, skidding to a halt. The tires left black marks across the parking lot. The other vehicles did the same, forming a rough semicircle near the entrance. Everybody bolted from their respective vehicles, except for the pickup truck. It stopped 10 yards behind the others, the men in the back aiming toward the barricade. Their rifles swept left and right, looking for movement. "Landry, get up there and get the door opened," Miles said. Landry and Ace did as instructed, moving up toward the door. Their boots pounded against the pavement as they ran. Landry hoped that nobody inside had them in their sights as they would be sitting ducks. His back felt exposed, vulnerable. Much to his surprise and relief, nobody shot at him as he worked on the door. The glass entrance stood before them, the automatic doors dark and still. Rather than try and pick the lock, Landry used the butt of his rifle to slam against the edge of the glass beside the locking mechanism. The first blow cracked it. The second blow spider webbed the safety glass. It took a few more hits for the safety glass to break away far enough from the frame for him to get his hand inside. Shards clung to the edges, sharp and jagged. He muttered curses under his breath as he fiddled around with the lock. His fingers searched for the mechanism, cutting themselves on broken glass. Blood smeared across the metal. He eventually found the release and was able to click it unlocked. The satisfying sound of the deadbolt sliding back echoed in the vestibule. "Ace, help me with the door," Landry said. Ace stepped over, both of them grabbing onto the sliding automatic door that had been powered down. They pushed it to the side, the door resisting on its track. It moved slowly, grinding against the frame. As soon as it was open wide enough, both men took a knee. They slid into the vestibule and aimed through the secondary set of doors leading into the building. They scanned the front area of the supercenter. The registers sat on one side, lanes stretching in a row. The first aisle of knickknacks was on the other, filled with seasonal decorations and clearance items. Nothing, no movement, no people, no signs that anybody was there. "What the hell?" Ace asked. "Just keep your head on a swivel, and for the love of God, stay close to me. If Connor is here, he might not shoot at you if you look like you were with me," Landry said. Ace thought about it for a moment, nodding and patting his friend on the shoulder. The gesture was brief but reassuring. "Miles, we're in," Landry said. Landry moved up to the exit door that was closest to the registers. He pushed it open, and Miles, Skylar, and 4 other men got inside too. The men pointed their rifles down the knick-knack side of the store, their movements coordinated and professional. "Okay, what are we dealing with?" Miles asked. "Whoever we saw near the front is in hiding. No clue where they went," Landry said. "Okay, Landry, I want you to lead the men down the side of the store and cut over to the back. Skylar and Ace are going to come with me to the front office," Miles said. "No way, I'm sticking with Landry," Ace said. Miles tapped his rifle in a menacing manner as he spoke. The gesture was clear, a threat barely veiled. "You're going to do what I say, or else we're going to have a problem," Miles said. Landry nodded to Ace, trying to comfort him. His eyes conveyed the message to comply, to not make this worse. Before anybody else could speak, panicked, pain screams came from the parking lot. The sound cut through the air, sharp and terrified. The group moved back over to the door, looking on in horror. The back of the truck was engulfed in flames, fire climbing high into the air. The 4 men in the back were jumping over the side, hitting the ground in an attempt to put the fire out. They rolled across the pavement, their clothes burning. As they rolled around, another Molotov cocktail fell from the rooftop. The glass bottle tumbled through the air before landing on the windshield of the truck, shattering on impact. Fire spread across the hood and cab, covering it in flames. The panicked driver got out of the truck, coughing from the smoke. He tried to aim his rifle up toward the roof. Before he could get it into position, a shot rang out. The crack echoed across the parking lot. The bullet hit him in the upper chest, spinning him around. He hit the ground a moment later, his rifle clattering beside him. One of the men managed to get most of the flames extinguished, rolling frantically across the pavement. He struggled to his feet, only to be put down by another bullet fired from above. The shot was clean, precise. Miles's first instinct was to run outside to help. He took a step toward the door, his hand reaching for the handle. However, Landry grabbed him by the shoulder, stopping him. "There's nothing we can do for them," Landry said. "Let go of me," Miles said. Skylar reached over and grabbed onto Miles as Landry let go. She held him back, her grip firm on his arm. "He's right. They're gone," Skylar said. Miles watched helplessly as more bullets rained down from above. Each shot was followed by a body dropping, the guards falling one by one. The remaining men tried to find cover behind the vehicles, but the angle from the roof gave the shooters a clear line of sight. Within seconds, all of them were down. The parking lot fell silent except for the crackling of flames. Anger filled Miles as he watched his men get put down. He turned back to the others, raising his weapon into the ready position. His finger rested on the trigger guard. Before he could bark out an order, the speakers inside the store crackled to life. Static hissed through the system. A booming voice came through the speakers in an almost mocking tone. The words echoed through the empty store. "Attention Supercenter shoppers, we have a buy one, get one free special on ass kickings today. So step right up and collect yours." Chapter 6. Miles shook with a combination of rage and fear in the vestibule of the supercenter. His hands trembled as he gripped his rifle, the weapon wavering slightly. He looked around to the men and women near him, all of them waiting for their orders. Their faces were pale, eyes wide. The reality of what had just happened in the parking lot was sinking in. It took him a moment to compose himself, his breathing coming in short gasps before he finally spoke. "Okay, Landry, take those 4 and go kill anything that's moving. Ace, Skylar, you're with me. Let's move," Miles said. Landry looked over to Ace, giving him a nod. The gesture was meant to steady his friend's nerves, to let him know it would be all right. Ace returned the nod, though the worry was clear in his eyes. After the trio turned to head through the door, leading to the front part of the store, Landry turned to his team. The 4 guards from the Lake Las Vegas community consisted of 3 men and a woman. All 4 of them were dressed for battle, tactical vests strapped tight and rifles at the ready. Magazines bulged from pouches on their vests. Sidearms sat holstered at their hips. However, Landry could see the fear in their eyes. This appeared to be the first time people were pushing back against them, and the realization that they weren't the superior force was quickly sinking in. One of the men kept licking his lips, a nervous tick. The woman's hands gripped her rifle so tight her knuckles had gone white. Another man shifted his weight from foot to foot, unable to stand still. Up until now, they'd been the predators, the ones with the guns and the numbers, the ones who kicked in doors and took what they wanted. But the bodies burning in the parking lot had changed that equation. Now they were walking into unknown territory, facing an enemy that had already killed half their force. "Just follow my lead and we'll be all right," Landry said. Landry looked each of them in the eye, steadying them. He held their gaze, projecting a confidence he didn't entirely feel. All 4 gave him a nod before falling into line behind him. They checked their weapons one last time, the sound of magazines being seated echoing in the quiet vestibule. Landry pulled open the interior door, the hinges creaking. He raised his rifle as he moved into the store, sweeping the area with practiced movements. He swept to his left as he moved, getting to the first aisle with the foursome, following close behind. Their boots made soft thuds against the linoleum floor. They kept the pace up, moving quickly but carefully. Landry's eyes scanned every corner, every potential hiding spot. They slowed down as they approached the large center aisle that cut through the middle of the store. Landry poked his head around the corner, looking down the long corridor. He was relieved to not see anybody there. The aisle stretched out before them, empty and quiet. Landry motioned for them to continue moving across into the back half of the store. His hand signal was clear, directing them forward. The first 3 men followed, boots moving in near silence. However, before the female guard could get behind cover, a shot rang out from the far end of the store. The crack echoed through the building, sharp and loud. The bullet tore through her gut, punching through her tactical vest like it was paper. The round found the gap between the plates, hitting soft tissue. She collapsed to the ground, her rifle clattering beside her. She let out a whimper as shock overwhelmed her, her hands clutching at the wound. Blood seeped between her fingers, dark and warm. Her face went pale, eyes wide with disbelief. She'd been standing, and now she was on the ground, unable to process how fast it had happened. The guard closest to her turned and reached back, trying to pull her to cover. His hands grabbed her vest, fingers finding purchase in the straps. He pulled hard, dragging her across the floor. However, another shot rang out before he could drag her more than a foot. The bullet hit her in the chest, center mass. Her body jerked from the impact, then went limp in his grasp. The light faded from her eyes. He was holding a corpse now, and he knew it. "Jesus Christ," the guard said. Landry pushed his way past the others, peeking out from behind cover. His eyes scanned the far end of the aisle, searching for the shooter. Still seeing nothing. Whoever it was had already ducked back behind cover, invisible in the shadows. "Come on, where are you?" Landry asked. Landry took a deep breath, trying to come up with a plan that would reveal the shooter. He looked around the aisle they were in, which had kitchen goods. Pots and pans hung from hooks, towels and aprons on display racks. It took him a moment to spot a hand towel hanging on the rack, grabbing it and draping it over the barrel of his rifle. The cloth hung down, a makeshift decoy. Landry got into position so that he could see down the main aisle. He pressed himself against the shelving unit, using it for cover. He extended the decoy out from behind the corner, the towel-draped barrel poking into view. He barely got it out 6 inches before the shooter popped out from behind cover and sent another round in his direction. The bullet ripped through the towel, the fabric tearing. The impact knocked it from his rifle barrel and forced him back behind cover. His heart pounded in his chest, adrenaline surging. "Got you?" Landry said. Landry spoke loud enough for his men to hear, knowing he had to keep up the charade. He looked to them, speaking forcefully with his orders. "You two, go down to the back aisle, move up 6 and see if you can draw them out," Landry said. The 2 guards were scared, their faces showing it. One of them glanced down at their fallen comrade, her body sprawled on the floor in a pool of blood. Landry snapped his fingers, the sound sharp in the quiet store. The noise got their attention back to the mission. "If you don't do what I say, then you're going to end up just like them. Now move," Landry said. The 2 men nodded, trying to psych each other up. One clapped the other on the shoulder before they moved swiftly down the aisle. They moved in a crouch, trying to stay low. The other guard inched up to the edge of the aisle, trying to poke his head around the corner. His movements were cautious, hesitant. "Where's the shooter?" the guard asked. "About 20 yards up on the left," Landry said. "I don't see them," the guard said. "Trust me, they're out there," Landry said. The guard contemplated the words for a moment before nodding. He retreated back behind cover, pressing himself against the shelving unit. His breathing was rapid, shallow. Both men flinched when they heard gunshots going off at the back end of the aisle. The sound was loud, multiple rounds fired in quick succession. They turned to see one man collapsing to the ground, motionless after a bullet ripped through his forehead. His body crumpled, rifle falling from his hands. The shots continued to fly as the other man took cover. He dove behind an end cap display, rounds pinging off the metal shelves around him. After 5 rounds hit off the metal shelves, sending sparks flying, the guard emerged from cover to try and return fire. He came up fast, finger on the trigger. Before he could get his gun raised, a large figure rushed him. The man moved with surprising speed for his size, covering the distance in seconds. Connor was built like a linebacker, all muscle and mass. He smacked the rifle barrel upwards with his hand, the metal clanging as he made contact. The motion was violent, forceful. It caused a round to be fired into the ceiling, the bullet punching through acoustic tiles. Debris rained down from the impact, white chunks falling like snow. Before the guard could recover, the large man delivered a forceful strike to his throat. His fist connected hard, crushing the windpipe. The sound was sickening, cartilage crunching. The guard dropped his weapon, his hands going to his neck as he gasped for air. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, no sound coming out. In one fluid motion, the attacker shoved the injured man back. Connor's hand was like a battering ram, slamming into the guard's chest. He raised his handgun and fired 2 rounds center mass. The shots were quick, professional. The guard's lifeless body dropped to the ground, hitting the linoleum with a wet thud. Blood pooled beneath him, spreading across the white floor. Landry looked at the man closer, the light hitting the attacker's face. The emergency lighting cast him in sharp relief, revealing that it was Connor. The big man turned toward the duo at the top of the aisle, his eyes locking onto them. He dove back behind cover as the guard raised his weapon and fired. "I'm gonna kill you," the guard said. The guard fired off a couple rounds, the bullets flying wild. He got in front of Landry to take point, moving into the open. His hands trembled as he struggled to aim, the shock of the last few moments overwhelming him. Sweat poured down his face. His aim wavered, the rifle barrel swaying. His struggles didn't last long. A gunshot went off behind him, the sound sharp and final. A single rifle round pierced the back of his head, blowing out the front. Brain matter and blood sprayed across the aisle in front of him. The man collapsed to the ground, his body going limp. He never knew that Landry had betrayed him. "Connor, we're clear," Landry said. Connor poked his head around the end of the aisle, cautious at first. He saw Landry standing tall over the dead guard, his rifle still raised. Landry lowered his weapon, raising his hands to shoulder height. The gesture was clear, universal. He wasn't a threat. "Landry, is that you?" Connor asked. "Were you expecting someone else?" Landry asked. Connor emerged from cover, walking cautiously toward Landry. His handgun was still firmly in his grip, barrel pointed at the ground, but ready to raise at a moment's notice. The two men moved toward the middle of the aisle, stepping over bodies and spent brass casings. They stopped a few feet from one another, sizing each other up. "Honestly, I'm not sure what I was expecting," Connor said. "I wish there was another way, but the situation with Sammy is going downhill fast," Landry said. "So you're not his number one anymore?" Connor asked. Before Landry could respond, multiple gunshots erupted from the front of the store. The sound was intense, overlapping cracks and pops that echoed through the building. A moment later, Connor's radio crackled to life. A woman's voice came through, strained and urgent. "We need help up here," she said. The gun battle at the front of the store continued, the sound getting more intense. Landry and Connor stood there, locked in place as they listened to the fight unfold. Rounds pinged off metal, glass shattered, people shouted. "I'm ready to take Sammy out," Landry said. Landry grabbed his rifle, raising it up and giving Connor a nod. The gesture was one of commitment, of partnership. The bodyguard looked his new ally up and down for a moment, studying him. His eyes searched Landry's face, looking for any sign of deception. Finally, he nodded as well. "Good enough for me. Come on, let's end this fight." Chapter 7. A few minutes earlier, Miles led Skylar and Ace out from the vestibule, moving up the front end of the store. His rifle swept left and right, covering every angle. The barrel tracked smoothly, his movements practiced. Each of them kept their weapons trained toward the registers, making sure that nobody was laying in wait. The checkout lanes stretched out in a row, dark and empty. The store felt wrong, too quiet, too empty. Every instinct Ace had was screaming that this was a trap, that they were walking into something bad. But Miles pressed forward with confidence, seemingly oblivious to the danger. Miles got to the last register, taking a knee beside it. He motioned for the others to do the same. They dropped down, backs pressed against the checkout counter. They paused there for a moment, getting the lay of the land. Their breathing was controlled but quick, adrenaline pumping through their systems. To their right sat the bulk of the store, aisles stretching back into darkness. Up on their left, about 15 yards away, sat the front office. There was a single door flanked on either side by two large windows. The windows were tinted, making it hard to see inside. A light was on in the office, casting a faint glow through the glass. Miles poked his head over the checkout counter, looking for movement. His eyes scanned the open floor space between them and the office, but he saw nothing. No guards, no defenders, no signs of life. "Okay, we're moving up to the office. I'll take care of the door while you two cover me," Miles said. "You have the keys?" Ace asked. Miles smirked and tapped his rifle. The gesture was cocky, confident. "I'm pretty sure this will open it up. Now come on," Miles said. Miles got up from cover, prompting the other two to follow. They raced across the open floor space, their boots pounding against the linoleum. The distance to the office felt like a mile, every step exposing them. They got within 5 yards of the office when gunshots filled the air. The sound was deafening, overlapping cracks that echoed through the building. All three of them slid down behind displays, trying to find any cover they could. Miles dove behind a magazine rack. Skylar found shelter behind a cardboard display advertising energy drinks. Ace pressed himself flat behind a promotional end cap. They looked around for where the shots were coming from, heads swiveling, but quickly they realized that the shots weren't meant for them. The gunfire was coming from deeper in the store, back where Landry had gone. "Come on, we have to move," Miles said. Miles got up from cover, leading them across the remaining space to the door. His legs pumped hard, closing the distance. Rather than fire at it, he stopped just short and delivered a forceful kick to the door. His boot connected with the wood just beside the handle. The door broke free from the frame with a crack of splintering wood, swinging inward and slamming against the wall. Miles darted in, sweeping the relatively small office. His rifle moved in an arc, covering every corner. The space was maybe 10 feet by 12 feet, cramped with filing cabinets and a desk. He moved out of the way so the others could get in. As soon as Ace got through the doorway, he slammed the door shut behind him. The broken frame wouldn't hold it closed, so it sat slightly ajar. Ace took a knee beside one of the windows, his rifle raised. Skylar did the same at the other one, mirroring his position. They set up fields of fire, covering the approaches to the office. Miles looked around the office, his eyes scanning the space. Eventually, he spotted the security monitors in the corner. A bank of 4 screens sat stacked on a metal shelf, each showing different angles of the store. Most of the screens were dark, the cameras not functioning. As he moved over to them, the group flinched at the sound of more gunshots coming from the store. The battle was raging somewhere in the back. "Hell yeah, kick their asses, boys," Skylar said. Ace didn't react to Skylar's enthusiasm. Instead, he focused on the area directly across from the office. His eyes scanned the aisles, looking for threats. They went wide as he spotted movement coming from the end of one of the aisles. Shadows shifted, figures moving. "I got movement," Ace said. Skylar's bravado quickly dropped. She perked up, turning her attention to the window. Her eyes searched the darkness. "I don't see anything," Skylar said. "Straight across on the left," Ace said. Skylar stared out, her eyes following his direction. Fear gripped her as she spotted the movement. She muttered curses under her breath as she readied her weapon. Her finger moved to the trigger. Just before she opened fire, Miles called out from behind them. "That son of a bitch betrayed us," Miles said. Ace could hear the rage in Miles's voice. Fear overtook him as he knew his cover might be blown. He didn't dare turn around, knowing that Miles might take that opportunity to take him out. His heart hammered in his chest. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Instead, Ace raised out of his crouch. He aimed his rifle out the office window and opened fire. The rifle bucked against his shoulder as he squeezed the trigger. He made sure to aim high, shattering the window and sending the bullets over the heads of the others in the store. Glass exploded outward, shards raining down. His action caused a torrent of gunfire to come back in their direction. Bullets crashed through the thin walls of the office, punching through the drywall like it was paper. The other window shattered as well, glass flying everywhere. Rounds whizzed through the air, some embedding in the filing cabinets with metallic pings. Others hit the desk, sending splinters of wood flying. Miles tried to take cover, diving toward the floor, but a bullet caught him in the shoulder before he could get down. The round spun him around, his body twisting from the impact. He hit the ground hard, letting out a pained scream. The sound was drowned out by the gunfire, lost in the chaos. Skylar glanced back, seeing that Miles had been shot. Blood was already spreading across his shirt, dark and wet. The sight caused her to stand up from her position. She opened fire toward the threats inside the store, her rifle on full auto. She screamed at the top of her lungs as she squeezed the trigger, the sound raw and primal. Her rage was overwhelming her ability to aim properly. The bullets sprayed wide, hitting ceiling tiles and shelving units. Ace took a knee to reload. His hands moved on autopilot, muscle memory taking over. He ejected the spent magazine, letting it clatter to the floor. Slapping in a fresh magazine, he chambered a round. He poked his head up from cover, looking out toward the store. His eyes scanned for a familiar face, searching through the chaos. After a moment, he spotted Landry standing beside Connor at the end of an aisle. Relief flooded through him. "Skylar, we have to get out of here," Ace said. "I'm not leaving Miles," Skylar said. "We're going to die unless we get out of here," Ace said. Skylar looked back to Miles, who was groaning in pain on the ground. Blood poured from his shoulder wound, pooling beneath him. His face was pale, twisted in agony. She was clearly conflicted, her eyes darting between Miles and the door. But quickly she realized that Ace was right. Staying meant death. "Damn it, what do we do?" Skylar asked. "When I give you the signal, you get out the door and move to the right toward the front entrance. I'm going to lay down covering fire," Ace said. "What about you?" Skylar asked. "I'll be right behind you," Ace said. A few more shots came at them from the store, forcing their hands. Bullets punched through the walls, one passing close enough to Skylar that she felt the air displacement. "Okay, give me the signal," Skylar said. "Move on 3, 1, 2, 3, Ace said. Skylar moved quickly over to the door, throwing it open. The broken door swung wide, hanging on its damaged hinges. However, the only gunshot that came from the office wasn't aimed toward the others in the store. A burning sensation struck her side as a bullet from Ace's gun ripped through her. The round tore through her ribs, punching clean through. She managed to look over at him as she fell, her body going slack. Pure rage filled her eyes as the realization hit her. Betrayal. He squeezed the trigger one more time, and the bullet hit her in the chest. center mass. Her body jerked from the impact before going limp. She collapsed in the doorway, blood spreading beneath her. As soon as she was down, Ace raised the gun up. He tossed it over the broken window and out of the office. The rifle clattered across the floor, sliding to a stop several feet away. He kept his hands up for good measure, fingers spread wide. Surrender. I'm a friendly, Ace said. Ace sat there, trembling as the adrenaline began to subside. His whole body shook, the reality of what he'd just done crashing over him. He listened as several sets of footsteps moved up toward the office, boots on linoleum, getting closer. A moment later, the door opened wider and Connor stepped through. He aimed his handgun at Ace, the barrel steady. He's good, Connor, Landry said. The bodyguard nodded at Ace before turning his attention to Miles. The wounded man was letting out a string of pained curses, his voice hoarse and strained. Blood continued to pour from his shoulder, the wound serious but not immediately fatal. Connor quickly moved over, kicking the rifle away from Miles's outstretched hands. The weapon skittered across the floor, well out of reach. Landry stepped up beside Connor, both men looking down at Miles. They stood over him like judges passing sentence. You son of a bitch! When I tell Sammy about this, he's going to crucify you, Miles said. The only way you're going to tell Sammy is if he breaks out a Ouija board, Landry said. Connor took a knee beside Miles, getting eye to eye with him. He kept his tone measured, calm even. However, it was clear who was in charge of the situation. The power dynamic had shifted completely. Are you the one responsible for the death of my people? Connor asked. Your people stole from Sammy. They got what was coming to them, Miles said. Miles tried to sound tough, defiant even, but frustrated tears of fear crept into his voice. His eyes were wide, pupils dilated. He knew he was dying. Connor nodded before standing back up beside Landry, looking down at the wounded man. I know what he's done to my people, but I also get the sense he's been a thorn in your side. So the honor is yours if you want it, Connor said. He's taken more from you than me, so by all means, Landry said. Landry motioned for Connor to take the shot. The gesture was gracious, offering the kill to the man who'd earned it. The big man gave a thankful nod before raising his handgun. He aimed at Miles's midsection and fired 2 shots. The first bullet hit just below the ribcage. The second punched through his stomach. They watched him double over in pain, his hands clutching at the wounds. Blood poured from his midsection, soaking through his clothes. Pained moans filled the air, growing weaker. Landry, while nature does its thing in here, why don't you and I go have ourselves a chat? There's a lot to discuss. Chapter 8. Connor, Landry, and Ace walked away from the office. Miles's moaning still filled the air as he bled out on the ground, the sound growing weaker with each passing moment. The gurgling quality to it suggested the bullets had done their work. He wouldn't last much longer. They walked to the far end of the store, their boots echoing through the empty aisles. The sound was hollow, bouncing off the high ceilings and metal shelving units. Eventually, they reached a small seating area outside of a coffee shop. Take a seat, gentlemen. We have much to discuss, Connor said. Ace and Landry sat across from Connor at one of the tables. The 3 men got comfortable, settling into the plastic chairs. Before they started talking, Connor got up and walked over to a small cooler sitting near the coffee counter. He opened it and grabbed 3 bottles of water, the plastic bottles still cold to the touch. He walked back and handed one to each of them. I appreciate it, Landry said. Thank you, Ace said. You risked your lives to save people I care about. I figure that's the least I could do, Connor said. Ace twisted the cap off his bottle, taking a long drink. The water was refreshing, washing away the taste of gunpowder and adrenaline. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand before speaking. Speaking of your people, were you able to get to that couple from the restaurant? Ace asked. Oliver and Sophia. Yeah, they should be okay. I sent my best team over there to retrieve them, Connor said. Are they the same ones I met yesterday? Landry asked. Yeah, and Naomi wanted me to tell you that she owes you a rib shot the next time she sees you. But other than that, no hard feelings, Connor said. Landry let out a laugh as he drank some of his water. The sound was genuine, cutting through the tension. Yeah, that's fair, Landry said. Connor set his bottle down on the table, leaning forward slightly. His expression turned serious. All business now. So, tell me about Sammy. What's going on down there? Connor asked. Landry and Ace exchanged a glance, each one waiting for the other one to start talking. Neither of them wanted to be the first to dive into it. The silence stretched for a moment before Ace finally started up. Well, as I'm sure you know, Sammy was never the most stable of individuals. But let's just say that a few weeks of alcohol-fueled isolation hasn't helped matters, Ace said. How bad is it? Connor asked. He's ruling the community with an iron fist. Most people are afraid to leave their homes, let alone mount any sort of resistance, Landry said. Connor took another drink from his bottle, processing the information. He set it down and looked between the two men. The bottle made a dull thunk against the table. You have guns. Why haven't you done it? Connor asked. Because we're outnumbered 5-1, and that's if we're lucky, Ace said. Connor thought about it for a moment, looking back toward the front of the store. His eyes drifted in the direction of the office where Miles and Skylar lay dead. The moaning had finally stopped, replaced by silence. His people are loyal, huh? Connor asked. A lot of them are, and it's not just about the job. They're personally loyal to him, Landry said. Ace shifted in his seat, adding more context. His voice was bitter. Sammy's got a way of picking people. He finds the ones who were nobodies before all this. Guys who got pushed around, ignored, never respected. He gives them power, makes them feel important. In return, they worship him. Landry nodded in agreement. And the ones who don't worship him are too scared to do anything about it. They've seen what happens to people who step out of line. Connor nodded slowly. The news wasn't good, but he needed to know what they were facing. Fantastic. What kind of numbers are we looking at? Connor asked. After this group, 30, maybe 40 worst-case scenario, Ace said. Jesus. Okay. Is there anybody on that side of the wall that's on our side? Connor asked. Best case, maybe 2 or 3. Realistically, we're probably on our own, Landry said. Is everybody as well armed as you guys are? Connor asked. Yeah, Sammy is a lot of things, but a cheapskate when it comes to weaponry isn't one of them, Ace said. Connor leaned back in his seat, downing some more water. He let out a sigh, his shoulders sagging slightly. The weight of what they were discussing was settling in. He looked around the store, spotting a few civilians coming out of hiding to help clean up the mess that had been made in the attack. They moved cautiously, checking bodies and gathering weapons. So, what do you have to bring to the table? Landry asked. Honestly, not much. There's myself, Matt, Naomi, and Santiago that you met, Connor said. Hopefully they have more than a baseball bat and some chains, Ace said. They don't, at least not more than they can use reliably, Connor said. Landry set his water bottle down, looking at Connor with a mix of surprise and respect. The man had been operating in enemy territory with nothing but hand weapons and sheer guts. So you've been out here taking over buildings and saving people going at these things hand to hand, Landry asked. And a little bit of fire, which, to be honest, seemed to work quite well on your friends out there, Connor said. He gestured vaguely toward the parking lot. The smell of smoke and burned rubber still hung in the air. Well, it's not going to work that well against a bunch of guys with assault rifles, even if they're not the best trained, Ace said. Landry tapped his fingers on the table, thinking. His mind was working through possibilities, trying to find an angle. Can Midnight Mike be of any help? I don't get to listen to his show all that much, but he seems like he's tuned into what's going on out there, Landry said. Connor shook his head, but slowed it to a stop as another thought hit him. His expression changed, a spark of recognition in his eyes. Mike might not be able to help, but I think Captain Foster might be able to, Connor said. Foster? I thought him and his men were up at Nellis? That's a long-ass haul to come back and help, Ace said. Connor's expression shifted, a hint of a smile crossing his face. He'd been holding this card close to his chest. That's true. Foster and most of his men are up at Nellis. The key word there is most, Connor said. Ace and Landry exchanged a knowing glance, nodding as the plan began to come together. The pieces were falling into place. If Foster had men in the area, men with military training and weapons, the odds had just shifted dramatically. Do you think they would come help? Ace asked. Connor didn't hesitate in his response. He'd already thought this through. Lake Las Vegas would be the mother of all strongholds. I have no doubt they'd be willing. But we're going to need a plan before I call them up. How are we getting in there and getting to Sammy? Connor asked. What do you think, Landry? The Golf Gate? Ace asked. The Golf Gate? Connor asked. Yeah, there's a small entrance at the southern part of the golf course. Used to be for deliveries to the clubhouse, but it's sealed up tight. Only a couple of guys keeping watch on it, Landry said. But won't Sammy reinforce it if nobody returns from this little excursion? Connor asked. Landry's face fell as the reality of the situation hit him. Damn it, you're right. And if I go back alone, I'm definitely a dead man, Landry said. There was a long pause at the table as everybody thought. The silence was heavy, each man working through the problem in his own head. Connor drummed his fingers on the table, the sound rhythmic and steady. Landry stared at his water bottle, his mind racing through scenarios. Finally, Ace let out a sigh and spoke up, his voice quiet but firm. I'll go back, Ace said. Landry's head snapped up, his eyes locking onto his friend. He'll shoot you too, Landry said. Maybe, maybe not. But one of us has to go back, and at least with me, there will be a chance he'll let me live, Ace said. His reasoning made a certain kind of sense. Landry had been the one in charge, the one Miles had blamed for the failures. Ace was just a soldier following orders. Sammy might see him as salvageable. Landry looked at his friend, concern clear on his face. He shook his head, not wanting to accept it. What the hell are you even going to tell him? Landry asked. I could tell him the truth, Ace asked. If you do that, then he'll lock the place down, Connor said. You could tell him that we're pinned down and need backup, Landry said. Ace thought about it for a moment, his brow furrowed. He gave a half-hearted nod, the plan forming in his mind. If I do that, then we're on a tight timeline. Connor, how quickly can you get the soldiers down here? Ace asked. If we're lucky, a few hours, Connor said. Then we're striking tonight then. Connor, make the call, Landry said. Connor nodded and pushed away from the table. The chair scraped against the floor as he stood. He moved to make the preparations, pulling out a radio as he walked away. His voice faded as he moved toward the front of the store, already making calls. Landry turned to Ace, his expression serious. The weight of what they were about to do hung between them. Take your time getting back home. I don't want you crossing over the lake until midnight, Landry said. Ace nodded, understanding the strategy. Give Connor time to get the soldiers in position. Give them time to prepare. Don't tip their hand too early. I'll tell Sammy what's going on. Let him rant and rave for a bit before suggesting the help. He'll dispatch a team that I'll do my best not to be on, Ace said. Lay low once they cast off and await my radio call. I'll be on channel 16, Landry said. Ace nodded as the two of them got up from the table. They stood facing each other, the weight of what was about to happen settling between them. This could be the last time they saw each other alive. Both men knew it, but neither wanted to say it. Ace's voice was quiet when he spoke. We're really doing this, aren't we? Ace asked. Landry reached out and gripped Ace's shoulder, the gesture firm and reassuring. His eyes met his friend's, steady and determined. We are. Sammy's reign of terror is coming to an end tonight. The end.